The military base was quiet except for the sound of boots striking against the training hall floor. The human soldiers had gathered to spar, sharpen their skills, and prove their strength. Among them was Captain Elias, a soldier who carried himself with calm confidence. He had fought battles before, but nothing in his life had prepared him for the strange encounter waiting inside that hall. The air felt different when the alien delegation entered. Their presence pulled every gaze in the room, their silver-blue skin marked with glowing tattoos that seemed to pulse with life. They walked with a grace that was both intimidating and mesmerizing. Among them was a young alien woman with long white hair that shimmered like frost. Her piercing eyes scanned the room, searching, judging, challenging. When her gaze finally locked onto Elias, the hall fell silent. The commander of the alien group spoke in a language that was translated instantly through small devices clipped to every soldier's ear. Our kind bonds through combat. To test the worth of your species, one of you must step forward. The words carried weight, almost ritualistic. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what bonding meant to this alien race. Elias, steady as always, stepped forward without hesitation. "I'll face her," he said. The young alien's expression didn't change, but something in her stance grew sharper. She moved to the center of the arena, her armor catching the overhead lights. Elias joined her, the ground vibrating faintly, as if the walls themselves understood the tension. No one else made a sound. The spar began with no warning. The alien struck first, faster than expected, her blade grazing across Elias's shoulder. He staggered back, surprised at her speed. But his training kicked in, and he countered with a quick jab that she barely dodged. The clash of movement filled the air with sharp echoes. To everyone watching, it seemed more than a spar. It was like they were fighting for something unseen, something much deeper. Minutes stretched like hours as Elias and the alien woman traded blows. He was strong, relentless, refusing to give ground. She was quick, graceful, and her strikes carried a strange rhythm, almost like a dance. Sparks flew as metal clashed against armor. Sweat glistened on Elias's skin, and still, neither yielded. The soldiers watching from the sidelines whispered among themselves. Something about this duel felt unnatural. It was not about victory. It was about connection. Then something strange happened. With every strike, the alien's tattoos glowed brighter. Her breathing quickened, not from exhaustion, but from something else. Elias noticed it, though he didn't understand it. When his fist connected with her arm, the glow surged, spreading like fire beneath her skin. Her eyes widened, not with pain, but with recognition. The hall grew colder, the air heavier, as if some ancient force had been awakened. Elias lunged forward, forcing her back, his determination unshaken. But then she stopped, catching his wrist mid-strike. For a brief moment, they froze. The silence in the hall deepened. Her grip was strong, but her gaze was stronger. "You do not understand," she whispered softly, the translator repeating, her words in flat tones. "This is no sparring match, this is the beginning." The soldiers watching shivered. None of them understood what she meant, but they could see it in her eyes. This was not about proving strength. It was something older, something sacred to her people. Elias, breathing heavily, realized too late that he had accepted more than a challenge. He had accepted a bond, a ritual that went far beyond combat. The fight was not ending. It was just beginning. The training hall was still buzzing after the clash. Soldiers whispered in uneasy voices, trying to make sense of what they had just witnessed. Elias stood in the center, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Across from him, the alien woman's glowing tattoos slowly dimmed, though her eyes remained locked on him, sharp and unyielding. There was no victory declared, no applause. Only silence, and the weight of something that felt unfinished. The alien commander finally stepped forward. His voice echoed through the hall, cold and heavy. "The bond has begun. It cannot be undone." The word sent a chill through the human ranks. Elias frowned, trying to steady his breathing. "What do you mean, bond? It was just a fight." But the alien woman tilted her head, her expression unreadable, almost amused by his confusion. She moved closer, her presence commanding even without a weapon in hand. In our kind, combat is not mere struggle. It is life. It is creation. When one accepts the challenge, they accept the bond. You have entered what you cannot escape. Her words were calm, but every syllable felt like stone dropped into a bottomless well. The soldiers shifted nervously, unsure whether to intervene or stand back. Elias tightened his fists, unwilling to show weakness. I didn't agree to anything except a sparring match. His voice was firm, but the alien delegation only looked at him with the same mix of respect and inevitability. The alien woman reached out, brushing her fingers across the mark his blade had left on her arm. The wound was shallow, but it glowed, faintly where the strike had landed, as if her very blood carried light. She held his gaze. You already agreed when you stepped forward. My species does not choose with words. We choose with blood. Her voice was low, yet every soldier in the room heard it clearly. The meaning struck them harder than any weapon could. Elias had unknowingly stepped into something ancient, something sacred to their people. The duel was not just combat. It was a ritual, a union written in their very biology. Before Elias could answer, alarms blared through the base. The sound shattered the tense silence, and red lights flashed across the walls. A soldier rushed into the hall, his face pale. Sir, enemy ships just entered orbit. We're under attack. The human soldiers immediately scrambled to their stations, but the alien delegation did not move. Instead, the commander raised his hand, signaling for silence. The timing is not coincidence, he said darkly. His eyes turned to Elias. You are bound now, and with this bond comes responsibility. The enemy will not hesitate. They know what has begun here. Elias's pulse quickened. He didn't know what they meant, didn't fully understand the strange ritual he had walked into, but he felt the alien woman's presence beside him, strong and certain as though their fates had already entwined. Her tattoos flickered back to life, brighter now, reacting to the tension in the air. The soldiers rushed past them, preparing for battle, but Elias stood still, caught between confusion and instinct. The alien woman stepped closer until her voice was only for him. You are not alone anymore. Fight beside me and you will see what this bond means. Elias stared at her, unsure whether to trust her words or resist them. But the ground shook violently as the first strike from orbit hit the outskirts of the base. Dust and debris rained down, soldiers shouting orders as chaos erupted. The war had arrived without warning, and Elias realized he had no time left to question anything. He gripped his weapon tighter, the weight of it suddenly heavier than ever before. The alien woman drew her blade, the glow of her tattoos spreading, like fire across her body. Her eyes burned with fierce determination. Come, human soldier, she said, her voice a blend of command and promise. The true fight begins now. And with that, they moved together toward the storm. The ground kept shaking as the enemy bombardment rained down from orbit. Sirens wailed through the base, soldiers rushed to their stations, and the smell of smoke already drifted into the training hall. Elias gritted his teeth, his body tense, still trying to process what the alien woman had said. A bond? Through combat? It sounded impossible. But right now there was no time to argue. She was already moving, her silver hair flowing behind her as she strode toward the armory section of the hall. Elias followed, his instincts driving him to keep up. She didn't look back, but she spoke clearly as she walked. Your enemies will not spare you. They know what has begun. They will try to end it before it grows stronger. Her words made little sense to him, yet something in her voice carried truth. He glanced at her glowing tattoos, pulsing brighter with every tremor of the ground. They almost looked alive, reacting to the chaos around them. Elias grabbed his rifle, checked the magazine, and steadied his breath. He had been through war before, but this one felt different, like invisible threads were pulling him into something far greater than his control. The command center crackled over the speakers. Enemy troops have landed outside the perimeter. All units prepare for ground engagement. Elias sprinted alongside his squad toward the outer defenses, but when he looked to his right, he saw her still there, moving with a deadly grace. She carried a blade rather than a rifle, but the energy that flowed through her made it clear she didn't need human weapons. Soldiers nearby gave her wary glances, unsure if she was ally or threat, but no one dared speak against her. The alien commander's words still echoed. The bond has begun. It cannot be undone. Outside, the battlefield was chaos. Dust clouds rose from craters where orbital strikes had landed. Enemy soldiers, strange armored figures with jagged helmets and heavy rifles, were already pushing toward the base. The air buzzed with energy fire and explosions rattled the earth. Elias dropped to one knee, sighted his rifle, and fired. The first enemy dropped, then another. His squad advanced behind cover, moving with trained precision. But then he caught sight of her. The alien woman didn't take cover at all. She surged forward, her blade flashing like a streak of lightning. With every strike, her tattoos blazed, brighter, and enemies fell before her faster than Elias could track. She moved like a storm, unstoppable and yet connected. Every time Elias fired, she shifted her movements as if they were already reading each other's intent. When he ducked, she covered. When she advanced, he instinctively followed. It wasn't strategy, it was something deeper. Their actions wove together like two parts of the same rhythm. Elias felt it but couldn't explain it, and each time he locked eyes with her in the middle of battle, the strange bond pulled tighter, as though combat itself was tying them closer. The enemy numbers were overwhelming, but the defenders held the line. Elias fired burst after burst, his heart pounding. Suddenly, an enemy sniper's shot cracked through the air, aimed straight at him. He turned too late to react, but she was already there. Her blade swung upward, catching the shot in a burst of energy that rippled across. Her glowing tattoos, she didn't even flinch. Elias froze, stunned. She had just saved his life without hesitation. She leaned close, her voice fierce even in the storm of battle. Do you understand now? Our bond grows in the fight. The more we struggle together, the stronger it becomes. Elias didn't know whether to fear her or trust her, but when another wave of enemies charged, he made his choice. He rose to his feet, rifle steady, and moved beside her. If this bond was real, then it was forged in fire, and he had no choice but to see where it would lead. The battle raged on, and with every strike, every shot, Elias could feel it, the connection tightening, something ancient awakening between them. He no longer fought just for survival. He fought because something inside him whispered that this was only the beginning. Smoke drifted across the battlefield, mixing with the smell of metal and fire. The first wave of enemies had been pushed back, but the base was far from safe. Craters lined the ground, walls burned, and wounded soldiers cried out for medics. Elias wiped the sweat from his brow, his chest heaving as he reloaded his rifle. Around him, the chaos continued, but his eyes kept finding her. The alien woman stood among the fallen, her blade still glowing faintly, her tattoos pulsing like embers after a storm. She looked almost untouched, her movements calm despite the destruction all around. When her eyes met his, Elias felt that strange pull again, deep in his chest, as though invisible threads tied them together. Before he could speak, his radio crackled with urgency. Captain Elias, report to Command Center immediately. Priority 1. He hesitated, torn between duty and the inexplicable bond forming with her, but she stepped forward before he could move, her voice firm. We go together. Elias opened his mouth to argue, but stopped. Somehow he already knew she wouldn't let him leave alone. And deep inside, he wasn't sure he wanted to. Inside the command center, chaos reigned. Maps lit up with red markers showing enemy dropships closing in. Commanders shouted orders. Analysts scrambled over screens and alarms screamed in the background. When Elias entered with the alien woman at his side, all eyes turned. Whispers rippled through the room, some fearful, some suspicious. General Harris, a stern man with gray hair and steel eyes, strode toward them. Elias, what the hell is going on? Why is one of them following you? Elias straightened, but the alien woman answered first. Her voice carried authority that silenced even the loudest chatter. Because he has accepted the bond. Whether your people understand it or not, our fates are now one. The room froze. Harris's expression hardened, his jaw tight. Bond? What nonsense is this? Elias swallowed, still unsure how to explain what even he barely understood. Sir, it's not nonsense. I fought her earlier, and now... He struggled to find words, but the memory of their synchronized combat was fresh in his mind. It's real. We move together like we've been training for years. It's not coincidence. The alien commander stepped forward, his voice heavy with ritual. The bond is sacred. When one of ours fights and survives with another, they are tied. It is how our kind continues. To break it is death. A chill spread through the command room. Soldiers shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Elias as though he carried something dangerous. Harris slammed his fist on the table. You're telling me my officer just walked into some alien ritual without knowing it? No one answered. The truth hung heavy in the silence. The alien woman turned to Elias, her gaze softer now, though no less intense. Do not resist it. To resist is to weaken us both. Already the enemy knows. They will hunt us harder because of what we have begun. Elias felt the weight of her words sink into him. He hadn't asked for this. He hadn't agreed to it. But deep down he couldn't deny the reality. When they fought side by side, something impossible had happened. And now, whether he liked it or not, the enemy was coming for them. The command center shook as another bombardment hit nearby. Dust fell from the ceiling and red warning lights flashed again. Harris barked orders, his patience gone. Enough. If this bond makes you fight better, then you'll use it. Both of you. The enemy is pushing for the heart of the base. You're on the front line. Elias tightened his grip on his rifle, the weight of responsibility pressing down harder than ever. He looked at the alien woman, who only nodded once, calm and certain. Her voice was almost a whisper, but he heard it clearly. Together, human soldier, until the end. As the next wave of enemies closed in, Elias realized there was no turning back. The bond was no longer just ritual. It was survival, and the war had only just begun. The battlefield roared louder with every passing minute. The enemy had landed more troops, and now the perimeter was breaking under the sheer weight of their assault. Elias sprinted across the burning field, his rifle tight in his grip, the alien woman at his side. They moved together like shadows of the same flame. Soldiers watched in disbelief as the human and alien fought as one, covering each other without a single word spoken. Explosions rattled the ground, smoke thickened the air, but Elias felt something strange. Like every strike, every shot, wasn't just his own. It was shared. His heartbeat thudded in rhythm with hers, and his movements adjusted instinctively to her flow. When he ducked, she struck. When she dodged, he covered. The bond was no longer theory. It was alive, burning stronger with each passing second. But Elias also felt the cost. His arms grew heavier faster than usual. His chest ached as if he carried more than his own exhaustion. It was as though her strength fueled him, but her strain drained him as well. Their lives were bleeding into one another, tied together whether he wished it or not. They pushed forward until they reached the outer wall, where the fighting was thickest. Enemy troops swarmed in waves, armored figures firing streams of plasma fire. Human soldiers were pinned down, unable to break through. Elias hit the ground beside his squad, firing bursts to push the enemy back. The alien woman landed next to him, her glowing tattoos shining brighter than ever as she leapt into the fray. The soldiers who fought beside them could barely comprehend what they saw. Her blade moved faster than the eye could track, carving through enemy armor with burning precision. Elias's rifle cracked again and again, each shot hitting its mark as if guided by more than training. Together, they carved a path through the chaos, dragging the line back from collapse. But the enemy had noticed them. A deep horn-like sound echoed across the field, and suddenly the enemy troops shifted their focus. Plasma fire rained down where Elias and the alien woman stood, forcing them into cover. Dust and sparks exploded around them. Elias cursed under his breath, pressing against the wall. They're targeting us specifically. She didn't look, surprised. Of course, they know what we are now. They fear it. Before Elias could ask what she meant, a massive shadow loomed through the smoke. An enemy warlord stepped forward, taller than any soldier, armored in jagged steel plates, its face hidden behind a dark mask. In its hands was a heavy war axe crackling with energy. The ground shook with each step it took toward them. Soldiers on both sides hesitated, the battlefield falling eerily quiet for a moment. The alien woman's eyes narrowed, her tattoos flaring brighter. They've sent a breaker, one whose purpose is to sever bonds. Elias tightened his grip on his rifle, sweat dripping from his temple. Then we don't let him. The warlord roared and charged, its axe swinging with terrifying force. Elias fired rapidly, bullets sparking off the beast's armor. The alien woman darted forward, meeting the swing with her glowing blade. The impact shook the earth, sparks scattering in every direction. Elias moved in, firing at its exposed joints, but the warlord barely flinched. The fight turned brutal. Every strike from the warlord carried the weight of destruction, forcing them back step by step. Elias felt the bond pulling tighter, his arms aching with her strain, his chest burning with her breaths. When she staggered, he stumbled. When he steadied himself, she regained balance. Their survival now depended entirely on trusting this bond neither of them had chosen. At last, the warlord swung wide, its axe cleaving a crater into the ground. Elias seized the opening, rushing in close. The alien woman mirrored him, her blade plunging deep into the warlord's armor as Elias fired point-blank into its chest. The creature let out a guttural roar before collapsing, the ground trembling beneath its fall. The battlefield erupted again with noise, but for Elias, time slowed. He glanced at her, sweat on her brow, tattoos glowing like fire, her chest rising, with heavy breaths. Their eyes met, and without words they both knew the truth. This was no accident. Their bond had just survived its first true test, and the enemy would not stop until it was broken. The warlord's body still smoldered where it had fallen, its massive axe buried in the ground beside it. Human soldiers cheered faintly from behind the barricades, but the victory felt thin. The battle was far from over. Enemy troops were regrouping, their formations tightening as new dropships descended from the sky. Elias stood over the fallen giant, his chest heaving, his rifle nearly empty. His muscles ached worse than they ever had, yet when he glanced at her, he knew why. The alien woman stood tall, her blade dripping with energy sparks, her tattoos still glowing like wildfire. She looked powerful, but Elias could feel her exhaustion as though it were his own. It was more than empathy. It was the bond itself, pulling their strength and weakness into one shared current. He pressed a hand against the wall, steadying himself. If this keeps up and we'll both burn out, her eyes met his, calm but firm. That is the way of our kind. The bond is no gift without cost, but together, we are more than either of us alone. You feel it too. Elias didn't answer. He didn't want to admit she was right, but deep down he already knew. The base commander's voice crackled in his earpiece, sharp and panicked. Captain Elias, report. The western gate has fallen. We're being overrun. Elias lifted his rifle again, ignoring the fire in his muscles. We're moving, he growled, signaling his squad to follow. But before he stepped forward, the alien woman laid a hand on his arm. Her touch was steady, grounding, and her voice softened. Do not fight against me, human soldier. Let the bond guide you. If you resist, you will die. If you accept, we will endure. Her words struck deeper than any order from a commander. Elias didn't know if he was ready to accept it fully, but with the base collapsing around them, he had no choice. They sprinted together toward the western gate, weaving through burning corridors and shattered walls. When they emerged, the sight nearly froze Elias in place. The gate was gone, reduced to rubble, and enemy forces poured through like a black tide. Human defenders were being cut down one by one, their lines breaking. Without hesitation, she charged into the chaos, her blade slicing arcs of light through the smoke. Elias followed, firing bursts at the closest targets, each shot landing true. And once again, it was as if they were two halves of a single force. He covered her blind spots without thinking. She shielded him before danger could reach him. Their movements weren't planned. They were instinct, synchronized by something deeper than training. But the enemy had brought more than soldiers. Machines stomped into view, towering walkers with cannons mounted on their backs. They unleashed volleys of plasma fire tearing through defenses. The humans scattered, their weapons barely scratching the metal beasts. Elias cursed under his breath, ducking behind debris. "We can't hold this gate, they'll tear the base apart." The alien woman's tattoos flared so brightly that the soldiers nearby had to shield their eyes. Her voice was almost a growl. "Then we strike their heart." Elias blinked at her, confused. "Their heart?" She pointed at the machines. "Their power flows through a core. Together we can break it. Alone we cannot." The bond tugged inside him, heavy and insistent. He understood her meaning without more words. If they threw themselves into the fire side by side, the bond itself might give them strength enough to do the impossible. Elias's pulse thundered. Every instinct told him it was suicide. But when she looked at him with that fierce certainty, he felt his hesitation melt. "Fine," he said, voice rough. "Let's do it." They surged forward together, bullets and plasma raining all around. The machines turned their cannons on them, but neither slowed. Elias felt the bond pulling, tighter, every nerve on fire, their wills fusing into one. As her blade swung toward the machine's glowing chest plate, Elias unleashed a storm of fire at the same point. The explosion ripped through the night like thunder. The machine collapsed in flames, and the others faltered, their movements stuttering. The soldiers behind them roared with renewed hope. Elias staggered, nearly falling, but she caught him before he hit the ground. Her grip was firm, her eyes burning brighter than the fire around them. "Do you see now?" she whispered. "Our bond is no curse, it is survival, and it is only growing stronger." For the first time, Elias didn't argue. He only nodded. The battlefield was a storm of fire and screams, but Elias barely noticed the chaos anymore. All he could feel was the bond pulling tighter with every step, every breath. His rifle shook in his hands, not from fear but from exhaustion that wasn't fully his own. He could sense her heartbeat, heavy and steady, pressing against his chest as if it belonged to him too. They had destroyed one of the enemy's war machines, but more were coming. The sky above glowed with fire as fresh dropships tore through, the clouds spilling more troops onto the field. The humans cheered weakly at their small victory, but Elias knew this battle was far from won. The alien woman stood beside him, her silver hair streaked with ash, her glowing tattoos flaring brighter than ever. She didn't falter even as her body trembled faintly with strain. When her eyes locked onto Elias, he understood her unspoken words. They had no time to rest. The base commander's voice blared over the comms. "All units fall back to the central line. The western defenses are lost." Elias cursed under his breath. Retreat was the last thing he wanted, but he knew the commander was right. The humans couldn't hold against this endless tide, not without something more. The alien woman gripped his arm suddenly, pulling him close. Her voice was sharp, but there was fire in her tone. "Your commanders will keep retreating until nothing is left. But we can end this. The bond can carry us further." Elias stared at her, caught between doubt and belief. "And this, look around you. They have more soldiers, more machines, more everything." She leaned closer, her glowing eyes piercing his hesitation. "You think small human soldier. Their strength lies in numbers. Ours lies in unity. The bond has not yet reached its full power. You feel it, don't you?" Elias wanted to deny it. He wanted to tell her this was just battle adrenaline, nothing more, but he couldn't. Every time their blades and bullets moved together, something impossible happened. They were faster, stronger, sharper. The bond was real. Before he could answer, a sudden boom split the air. One of the remaining war machines fired, its plasma round obliterating a section of the wall. Human soldiers screamed as the blast tore them apart. Dust and blood filled the air. Elias's fists clenched. "Fine," he growled. Tell me what we need to do." Her lips curved into the faintest smile, not of victory, but of recognition. "We fight as one, no hesitation. Every strike, every breath together. If you surrender to it, the bond will open fully. Then even their machines cannot stand against us." Elias nodded slowly, his pulse racing. This was madness. But war had always been madness. And maybe, just maybe, this was their only chance. They charged forward again, straight into the jaws of the enemy. Plasma bolts lit up the air, explosions rattled the ground, but Elias and the alien woman moved like a single being. She struck high, he struck low. He fired left, she cut right. The rhythm built, faster and faster, until even the enemy hesitated at their approach. Then it happened. For a moment, the bond flared so brightly that Elias felt the world tilt. His vision sharpened, his movements flowed without thought. It was as if he could see through her eyes and she through his. Time slowed, every detail crisp and clear. He felt her strength filling his limbs, her breath flowing into his lungs, her will fusing with his own. They struck together, not as two fighters, but as one. Their combined assault tore through enemy lines, cutting down soldiers and machines alike. Human troops, inspired by the sight, rallied and surged forward with renewed courage. Elias barely noticed them. All he felt was the bond, alive and burning, inside him like fire in his veins. For the first time, he wasn't afraid of it. For the first time, he accepted it fully. When the enemy line broke and began to fall back, Elias stood panting, sweat dripping from his brow. The alien woman stepped beside him, her tattoos glowing like a sun in the smoke. Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned with fierce intensity. "You see now, human soldier," she whispered. "This is what we are meant to be." Elias met her gaze, and for once he didn't resist. He only nodded. The battlefield had changed. Where once chaos ruled, now there was rhythm. Human soldiers who only moments before were retreating in despair fought with renewed courage. They had seen Elias and the alien woman carve through the enemy like living fire, and hope spread among them like a spark in dry grass. But hope alone wasn't enough. The enemy was far from beaten. New dropships pierced the smoke-filled sky, unleashing fresh troops. The ground shook as more war machines landed, their cannons glowing with deadly energy. The humans were outnumbered, and even with their courage, restored, the tide threatened to crash over them again. Elias staggered, his rifle heavy in his hands. Sweat dripped from his brow, his body screaming for rest. Yet he could still feel her. Her heartbeat steady in his chest, her strength pulling him upright even as exhaustion dragged him down. The bond was no longer just connection. It was lifeline. The alien woman stood beside him, her silver hair tangled with ash, her glowing tattoos burning brighter than ever. She was breathing hard, but her eyes remained sharp, locked on the enemy forces marching closer. When she spoke, her voice was calm, steady, like stone amid the storm. "The bond has opened. You feel it now." Elias nodded, though he couldn't find the words. He had never felt anything like it. Every step they took was one. Every strike was shared. It wasn't just fighting together. It was becoming something more, something stronger than either, human or alien alone. The alien commander approached through the smoke, his tall figure commanding attention. He studied Elias with an unreadable gaze, then spoke in that deep, measured tone. "You have survived the awakening. Few ever do. Now, the enemy will hunt you with greater fury. To end this war, you must face their core." Elias frowned, wiping soot from his cheek. "Their core," the commander nodded. "The enemy is not endless. Their strength flows from a central ship above your skies. Destroy it, and their army will falter. Fail, and this world will fall." The alien woman stepped closer to Elias, her eyes blazing with determination. "This is why the bond chose us. Together we can reach their core. Alone, neither of us would survive." Elias stared at her, torn between disbelief and grim acceptance. The idea of storming an enemy flagship sounded like suicide, but deep down, he knew she was right. Already, the enemy was focusing their fire on them, Already the bond had pulled him into battles he could never have survived alone. Maybe this was his fate now. The command center crackled in his earpiece. "Captain Elias, report. Are you with the alien?" He glanced at her, then back at the burning field. His voice was steady when he answered. "Yes. And if we're going to win this, we're going together." There was silence on the other end, followed by the reluctant voice of General Harris. "Then God help you both. All units cover them, get them to the skies." The order rippled across the ranks and soldiers rallied once more. Tanks shifted position, turrets roared, and covering fire blazed against the enemy to clear a path. For the first time, human and alien forces moved as one. Elias and the alien woman sprinted through the chaos, their bond guiding every step. Plasma fire tore through the ground around them. Explosions lit up the sky, but nothing could slow them. Elias felt his rifle growing light in his hands, as though her strength flowed through him, steadying his aim. She felt his determination, fueling her blade, striking harder, faster, with every swing. When they reached the landing bay, a battered gunship waited, engines screaming, smoke pouring from its side. The pilot waved them in desperately. "We don't have long. Get aboard." Elias leapt onto the ramp, pulling her in behind him as the gunship lifted off. The battlefield shrank below them, soldiers still fighting, explosions still tearing the earth. Elias's chest tightened with guilt, leaving them behind, but he knew this was the only way. The alien woman placed a hand on his arm, her touch grounding him once more. "Do not fear. If we succeed, their struggle will not be in vain." Elias looked at her, then out at the sky where the enemy flagship loomed like a shadow swallowing the stars. His jaw tightened. "Then we finish this." The bond pulsed between them, alive and unbreakable, as the gunship roared into the night. The gunship rattled as it cut through the smoky skies, every impact from enemy fire shaking the hull. Elias gripped the side rail, his knuckles white, his heart pounding as the massive enemy flagship grew larger ahead. It loomed like a mountain of steel, its surface bristling with cannons and glowing with rivers of energy. The pilot shouted over the roar of the engines. "I can get you close, but after that, you're on your own." Elias exchanged a glance with the alien woman. Her glowing tattoos pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, a steady thrum inside his chest. Neither of them needed to speak. They both knew this was it. The gunship dove low, weaving through streams of plasma fire. Explosions lit the night sky, casting shadows across Elias's face. Just before the flagship's cannons locked onto them, the pilot opened the side bay. "Go! Go now!" Without hesitation, Elias leapt into the void, the alien woman right beside him. For a moment, the world was nothing but rushing wind and fire streaking past. Then they landed hard on the metallic hull of the flagship, magnetic boots locking them in place. Sparks flew as enemy drones swarmed from hidden bays, their weapons glowing. "Stay close," Elias barked, raising his rifle. The alien woman nodded, her blade already shimmering with light. Together they tore through the drones, moving with impossible speed. Each step was shared, each strike was won. Elias's bullets cut down those she didn't reach, while her blade shielded him from blasts he couldn't dodge. The bond was alive, guiding them across the steel battlefield of the ship's surface. As they carved a path forward, Elias felt the bond deepening further, pulling him beyond the limits of his body. He could see flashes of her thoughts, sharp images of her people, of ancient battles fought in the same ritual. He glimpsed her pain, her pride, her loneliness. And he knew she saw him too. His scars, his memories of Earth, the soldiers he had lost. Nothing was hidden anymore. They reached a hatch at the heart of the flagship and forced it open. Inside, narrow corridors stretched like veins of metal, pulsing with blue energy. The ship seemed alive, humming with a rhythm that set Elias's teeth on edge. The alien woman whispered, "We are close. The core is near." They moved deeper, fighting their way through enemy guards clad in heavy armor. The combat was brutal, the narrow halls amplifying every shot, every scream. Elias's muscles screamed for rest, but her presence pushed him forward, her strength flowing into him when his began to fail. Finally, they burst into a vast chamber, glowing with an eerie blue light. At its center hung the core, a massive sphere of energy suspended by dark metal claws pulsing like the heartbeat of a god. The heat made sweat drip from Elias's brow, and the hum vibrated deep in his chest. But guarding the core was no ordinary soldier. A towering figure stepped forward, clad in armor darker than night, its eyes burning like coals. This was no warlord. This was their commander. He raised a weapon, a double-bladed axe crackling with raw power, and his voice thundered across the chamber. "Bonded ones, you will not leave this ship alive. Your blood will end what you began." The alien woman's grip tightened on her blade, her tattoos blazing like fire across her skin. She turned to Elias, her voice calm despite the storm around them. "This is the true test. Only together can we overcome him." Elias steadied his rifle, his hands trembling, but his voice was steady. "Then let's finish this." The enemy commander charged, the floor trembling under his steps. Elias and the alien woman moved as one, their bond blazing like a star, carrying them straight into the heart of the storm. The enemy commander's footsteps shook the chamber, each stride echoing off the metal walls like a drumbeat of doom. His axe burned with raw energy, casting violent shadows across the glowing core behind him. Elias's chest tightened, but he didn't back down. The alien woman stood at his side, her blade blazing like lightning, her tattoos glowing so brightly. They lit the chamber with their fire. When the commander swung his axe, the shockwave rattled the entire room. Elias was thrown back, barely rolling to his feet before another strike split the floor where he had stood. Sparks showered around him, the hum of the core growing louder with every blow. The alien woman darted forward, her blade clashing against the commander's weapon with a flash of light. The force of it drove her back, but Elias was already there, firing burst after burst into the gaps in the commander's armor. The bullets sparked, some finding weak points, but it wasn't enough. The commander pressed forward like a storm, each strike threatening to crush them. Elias felt the strain, rip through his body. His muscles screamed, his arms shook, but he refused to fall. Every time he faltered, he felt her strength holding him upright. Every time she staggered, his will steadied her. The bond pulsed between them, stronger than ever, fusing their breaths, their movements, their very souls. The commander roared, swinging his axe in a wide arc that forced them both to dive aside. The weapon struck the wall, sending shards of metal flying. Elias rose to one knee, panting, his rifle nearly empty. "We can't match him blow for blow," he gasped. The alien woman's voice was steady, even as blood streaked her arm. "No, but together we can strike where he cannot defend." They circled, their movements tightening, their rhythm finding its perfect beat. When the commander swung again, Elias moved low, firing to draw his attention. The alien woman darted high, her blade slashing across his shoulder. The commander bellowed, swinging wildly, but Elias was already there to block, his rifle smashing against the axe's haft to deflect the strike. Every attack, every defense, came from both of them. They were no longer two warriors. They were one. The bond burned inside Elias like fire in his veins, and for the first time, he didn't resist. He gave himself fully to it, and in that moment, he felt everything. Her determination, her pride, her belief that he was worthy. With a roar, they struck together. Elias fired point blank into the commander's chest as the alien woman drove her glowing blade deep into the same spot. The combined force shattered the armor, energy bursting outward in a blinding explosion. The commander staggered, dropping his axe with a deafening clang before collapsing to his knees. The chamber shook violently, the core behind him pulsing faster, unstable. The alien woman pulled her blade free, her chest rising with heavy breaths. Elias aimed his rifle at the core, his voice low. "If we destroy it, the whole ship goes down." She stepped beside him, her hand brushing his arm. "Then we destroy it. Together." Elias nodded once. They moved as one, raising their weapons, channeling the last of their strength into a single strike. Her blade and his rifle struck the core at the same moment, and the world erupted in white light. The explosion tore through the flagship, ripping steel apart, sending shockwaves across the battlefield below. Enemy troops faltered, their machines collapsing as power drained from them. Human soldiers raised their heads in disbelief as the massive ship began to break apart in the sky, fire consuming its frame. In the chaos, Elias felt himself falling, the bond burning hot inside him. But then he felt her arms, steady and strong, pulling him close. Her voice was faint, but it reached him. "You see, human soldier, this is what we were meant to be." The light faded, and the battlefield grew silent. The flagship was gone. The enemy broken. Humanity had survived. When Elias opened his eyes again, he was lying on the ground among the ruins, the alien woman beside him, her hand still gripping his. The bond still pulsed faintly between them, not just survival anymore, but something far greater. And for the first time, Elias didn't question it. He only whispered back, his voice rough but certain, "Together."